I'd like to introduce tonight's speaker, Michelle Griffoul. She's a nationally and internationally recognized tile maker. She successfully owned and operated a tile making company up in the Santa Barbara area. She is sought out for her expertise, both in craftsmanship and in instruction. I think we're really lucky to have her tonight to share with us Tile Making 101. So we're going to ask you to bear with us. We've got, I'm gonna be showing some of her material here, and she's going to be talking, and hopefully this is all going to work out just fine. So without any further ado, welcome, Michelle.
Thank you. I'm good. Hi, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. A little bit of my background. I started being a potter when I was in high school, but not at high school. I took private lessons, and by the time I was 17, I started my own school. I had 3 potter's wheels, a kiln, 3 people in a class, 8 classes a week. I created a whole structure for myself and a business when I was 17, and I've made a living from clay my whole life. So I've probably worked for other people about 1 year cumulatively. Other than that, I've just went through undergraduate school at San Jose State in ceramics. I got a master's of fine arts in ceramics from University of Puget Sound. Went to school in Italy, to a private ceramics school there for a year. And I just still love it. It's been 54 years and I just can't, I'm just really upset I don't have more time to make stuff all the time. I just bought another house and I'm remodeling. So, but anyway, I'm lucky enough to, I've moved, I retired from my tile business. I had that for about 40 years and retired and moved to Maui and built a custom house and a studio, a 1,200 square foot studio with a view, which was like my dream my whole life to do when I retired. And I called it my dessert because it was the first time I ever got to make stuff without worrying about if customers wanted it or had to sell it. So all my life I made products and I made things to sell. I made, casseroles and bowls and things like that. Then I made tile and I did a lot of really custom work. So it was so exciting to finally get to a point in my life where I could just make whatever I want. If I didn't like it, I could throw it away. I'd give it away, but I didn't ever sell anything. So it was fun, and it's still fun because that's what I'm doing now. I'm teaching for kind of a pittance, which is fine. It's fun. I love it. And I make stuff and I pretty much give it away to nonprofits and, all kinds of people. So I'm still throwing and I'm teaching tile now again. So that's kind of my background. I just love clay. I did fused glass. I have a fused glass studio too. I was a weaver for 15 years. Also, I had floor looms and did spinning and dyeing. While I thought of that as my hobby. Well, clay was my job. So I'm always loved making stuff, and I think I came from a family who, my grandfather had a bronze foundry. 4 generations of my family had bronze foundries in Paris and cast some of the Rodin sculptures and a lot of things. So I just think, I've always loved making stuff from the time I learned how to make anything. So that's what I do. So I think we can just maybe start the slides. I don't know how you want to proceed.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Let's hope this all works here.
Thank you for your patience.
Let's go. Let me see.
Okay, there you go. The slides are all on the side.
Okay, yeah, play from start.
You want to show some slides first of some projects and then we'll do the video, or let's do that. So when I was throwing, I was a production potter, but I like to challenge myself. So I threw really large pieces and then I raccooed them. I threw pieces as thin as I could possibly make them, sometimes to the point where the clay was tearing, they were eggshell thin, and then I'd raccoo them to see if they'd still hold together. So they did. And now I'm not throwing so big. It hurts my hands too much. Those are just a few pieces to show I'm actually a potter. And then I started making tile. I was doing wall sculptures, selling in galleries. And so this is a lot of the really custom tile I made. All these pieces are handmade in my studio. I designed everything. I made all the glazes. It's all cone 5 porcelain. This particular pool, the Daytona pool, we won the top tile design awards in the world in a big tile competition. With, the Italians gave me a check for $10,000, which was kind of exciting because, well, first of all, they were upset that an Italian man didn't win and it was some American woman. They were shocked at that. But anyway, so this pool was a great client. It was in Florida. I sold in 200 showrooms throughout the country. So you can go ahead.
Okay.
I was just saying next.
Yeah.
This is part of that same pool. 3-dimensional fish. This is a waterfall that flows down over into the pool. If you look closely, all the trim pieces are extruded. They all have 3 colors on them. One thing I like to do in design was just make it different. Usually quarter rounds are one size. We made all custom quarter rounds for this project. All of them have 3 colors of glaze on them, so they flowed with the mix of the mosaics. Bathroom. We made all the floor tile. This is just standard. These are 3x6s, but they have a wavy pattern in it. This is near the ocean and Hollister Ranch. And then I use also, when the tile business got slow, I started working with a foundry making stainless steel tile and bronze tiles. So I had a whole line of bronze and stainless steel too. And there's stainless steel in this floor, little squiggles around the mosaics. The fallen leaves, a lot of people, I did sold a lot of that. And this is a floor with the squiggles on the left side are bronze. And then I liked having things just kind of flow. So it looked like, that looks like a mirror, but it's actually the outside and the inside. And the leaves are just flowing into the house. And then they're cut into the stone. I like tile to be surprises. I like it to be fun. This pot's about 3 feet by 3 feet. It's really big. I'm doing some of these now. That's a different one. These are some columns that San Ynez, these actually were moved here, but there's some columns that have fish wrapping around them. There were styrofoam columns that I bought and turned them sideways and wrapped the fish and all the tiles around them, and then wrapped them with cheesecloth to keep them that shape while they dried, so they'd have the curve of the column. They're about 8 or 10 feet high. Okay, so we can go to the video now.
Okay, so now
This kind of shows how my whole factory, and I think it'll give you a really good idea of how we made everything, patterns, cutting, laying out, all that. So, and then we'll go to some more handmade stuff. Yeah, that one.
Hi, I'm Michelle Griffoul. From our studios in Santa Barbara County to homes and businesses around the world, I've been designing and manufacturing beautiful and durable tile for over 35 years. Our tile making process is as conservative as it can be in not creating waste in the first place. We try to be aware on a daily basis of our impact on the earth and lessen it in every way we can. We're full members of the Tile Council of North America. Our tiles are put through rigorous tests in their lab to document their durability, chemical resistance, and commercial floor rating. They're not only beautiful, they're robust and resilient. I'm a member of the Tile Council's Green Initiative Committee to create standards for green tile manufacturing in North America. I design all of our tiles, and we have over 400 tile designs in our collection. Many designs are conceived by me, but some of our best ideas come from our customers. Each and every design that we make is a Michelle Griffoul Studios original. We love working with customers that want an original design. We can create something for you or collaborate with you to come up with something unique. We can even take your logo or design and make it out of tile in any combination of our over 100 colors in our color palette. Let's start our tour of the green manufacturing process that Michelle Griffoul Studios uses. We buy all of our clay by 10 tons at a time, and we buy it wet, so we don't manufacture our own clay. That way it keeps the dust down And you can start with 25 pounds right here. It all begins right in this room. We only move our clay one time to conserve energy. We don't use conveyor belts. Everything is handled by a person. We hand wedge our clay for consistency prior to rolling it out into a slab on the hand-operated slab roller. Laminated patterns are put onto the wet clay for precise cutting. After the full slab of tiles is hand cut, the waste is reworked into more tiles. Hand cleaning and carving makes each piece at Michelle Griffoul Studios unique. %of our tiles are truly made by hand. For the remaining tiles, we use our 40-ton hydraulic press. I carve all of the original patterns on site in our studio. Again, as you can see, all of the wet scrap clay is immediately reused and made into more tile. Here you can see the entire cycle. We do not waste anything. This is our solar drying area. We're fortunate to live in Santa Barbara County where we can take our carts and racks and have our tables out here and dry all of our tile outside. It's sunny probably 95% of the year, and so we utilize the sun every single day in drying our product. Most tile factories use a lot of energy in gas-fueled drying rooms to force dry their tiles. But where we live with the sun and the breeze, even in the winter, we're still able to dry our tiles outside most of the year. After our tiles are dried in the sun, we bring them into the glaze department to be hand glazed. We don't bisque fire our tiles because we feel that they are dried so completely by the sun, it's not necessary. They're very absorbent, very dry, and perfect for our hand glazing technique. We use Japanese brushes to glaze all of our tiles. We use many sizes of Japanese brushes to glaze all of our tiles except our field and square mosaics. We glaze those with paint rollers instead of spraying. We didn't want to have any overspray to recycle. Our goal to be green has always been to work in a way that doesn't create waste in the first place, so we have so much less to recycle. As we finish glazing our tiles, the excess glaze is scraped off the back of them to prevent them from sticking to the kiln shelves. Those shelves are then taken into the kiln room and loaded individually. This is one of our 3 kiln rooms. We use electric kilns because we find that the consistency for our glazes is much better with an electric process than with a gas process. We keep a kiln log of every firing that we do, and we keep notes of every project that's in each kiln and actually where it is in the kiln. So we know the exact temperature of the top, the middle, and the bottom of each kiln for each firing. So if we need to make any adjustments as the kilns get older, we're very careful about making sure they're well maintained. This room also has our fans in it. This fan takes the heat out of the room in the summer when it's very warm here, and other fans take the heat back into our manufacturing facility when it's in the winter and we need the heat to go in. So we're constantly controlling the atmosphere and where our heat is going so we can use it to its maximum. We also use this room for drying our tiles on the few days that we do have rain, and we roll our racks right in here. Therefore, from the heat of the kiln, we can fire our tiles, we heat our studio, and we use it as a drying room as well. To reduce our electrical footprint, we fire our kilns at night. Our computers turn them on at 9:30 at night and they go off by 8:30 in the morning. This reduces the amount of energy required on the grid during the day as well as our costs. As each project comes into the layout department, it's already been in the wet clay department, the glaze department, come out of the kilns, and then we get all the pieces in here. Many of our projects involve thousands and thousands of pieces of mosaics that all have to be arranged and assembled by our layout department. Every project that we do is laid out to the customer's specifications, so every single project is different. If you want a project that's 10 1/4 inches by 43 3/4, we will lay it out to your specifications. And if we're given the correct measurements, the installer shouldn't even have to use a tile saw at all. This is a water line that we just finished for a customer, and it's 140 linear feet, 10 inches high. This customer chose about 18 different colors in their mosaic, so it was a very complicated layout, and it involves a fish approximately every linear foot. You can see here that we have numbers on each section. So after we've laid out the design, we tape it, so we hold it all together for the installer. Then we number each section so each section fits together perfectly and the installer knows where to put them. As you can see, every section is an irregular cut because we don't want it to look like the installer just had repeated patterns of linear foot sections that just stuck together. We want it to look like the installer installed each piece individually, but we want to control the artwork here. So we carefully prepared for them that way. We make a layout map, and we keep a digital file of the layout map and a photograph of each project that we ship. So if someone wants to add on to a project, we know their exact colors, we know the specifications of the size, we know everything that they need so we can add on. We've had customers come back to us 10 years later and say that they wanted to add on to something that they had ordered, and we were able to match it and make it fit perfectly for them. This is a typical project where we start with thousands of pieces of mosaic. The correct placement of each piece will determine the beauty of the final product. So I'd like you to change the tip of the wave so that it has more blue mixed in with the white so we can really tell that that's water and this is the way the wave comes down and then this is the sky. And the same thing with this wave, let's pull more blue all the way into here. Give me a few pieces. Pick up some of these so we really can see there's a distinct difference. Then when it's grouted, we'll see this is water where the wave comes down and this is the background. And the moon is too small. We use 12-inch wide tape to secure the mosaics in place. We cut each section into approximately 1 square foot to ease the handling for the installer. We try to be as economical as possible in our packing process. We use recycled cardboard and boxes to pack our tiles, as well as all of the shredded paper from our office. We encourage our customers to recycle all packing materials. Michelle Griffoul Studios is a 4-time winner of the highest tile design competition in the world, including the grand prize in the Spectrum Awards. To complete our green cycle, we do not throw away any leftover tile. Over the years, we've donated thousands and thousands of tiles to parks and schools. Michelle Griffoul Studios takes great pride in being environmentally and socially responsible throughout our entire process while making the most creative and beautiful tiles in the world.
Okay, so I can't remember where we are in slides. Yeah, there we go. So this is a mural I did for the VA hospital in Cleveland. It's 6 feet by 40 feet. It has a lot of detail in it. And usually on a project like this, I didn't supervise the installation of the tile, but I went for the grouting because I find grouting, if any project you do, even if it's a small black backsplash for your kitchen, is really critical to the final look. And so this project has 10 different colors of grout. It was in a basement in the VA hospital rehab area where vets are coming back from Afghanistan with, serious ailments and have to do water rehab. So I don't have a picture of it in place because there were all these columns in the pool area and there was a chair to lift people in and out of the pool. So if you look at this, you can see it's stitched about every 4 feet. I got in the pool in a bathing suit and took a picture every foot so we could stitch it all together and overlap it to see just the whole thing. But it's basically, I wanted to create a fantasy. So when they're in this horrible place of rehab and a basement in Cleveland, that they're really can fantasize being somewhere else. I mean, that's what I would want to do. So anyway, that's how this project came about. Just some tiles for my, this was I had 3 outdoor bathrooms in Maui. This was one of them with a, sorry, there's my mailbox, which was, I had to, of course, do the mailbox. I'm doing one for my house here now. This is just in the inside of it. My first swimming pool I did, which was at my house in Los Olivos, and there were 600 fish in the pool. And here I am at night on a ladder installing tile. And if you could see the whole thing, the ladder is very unstable and it's like ridiculously propped up. I have 3 sweatshirts on because it's about 40 degrees outside. So this is how we start. You saw that there was that fish that we were cutting out. If you, this would be like a small little backsplash. This is about 20 by 30. And it's just, you draw your pattern that you want, number everything, because of course you have to have a number of each tile, because if something breaks, say tile number 3 breaks, you want to be able to replace that tile exactly as it was when it was wet, not when it's dry or when everything else has been bisque fired and say you drop a tile. So I make all the patterns, and you always have to keep your patterns numbered, clearly labeled, so you can replace anything that might break, because they will, and they do, or you lose it, or it gets chipped or whatever. You can next. So this is just putting it all back together. Then you have to also decide what's really important is the direction, because when I cut out tile, I use a needle, And I always use the thinnest needle possible, but it also displaces clay as you cut with the needle. So there's always going to be a little displaced edge on the top. You can either clean all those edges off, or you can flip it over and the other side's really clean. The displaced clay on the back is going to leave a little bit of space for the grout to be a little bit irregular. So we always scrape that off with a needle, but with a knife, but we don't do it as cleanly as is necessary if we don't need to, because the other side's really clean. So you have to make sure, if I wanted that tile swimming in the right direction when it's finished, that I have to flip the pattern back over to the left after I clean the tiles. So then I have you can go to the next slide. So then I put it back together like this. So I wanted it swimming left, actually, in this one, not right, because I cleaned the other side. So just make sure you know it's very directional, which direction it's going in. And you'll see as we get to the next slides how important that is. This is freezer paper that I buy at Smart and Final. This paper is waxed on one side, because if you use regular printer paper or something, it's going to dissolve. Your clay's wet. So this paper is really great to use. I've bought bigger rolls. When I was doing a lot, I bought, 36-inch wide rolls of paper that, weighed 150 pounds. They were ridiculous. But you need to be careful the kind of paper you use, or some people use, what's that paper you put on shelves? That's kind of plastic. I don't remember the name. But anyway, anything that's not going to dissolve, because if you use regular printer paper, clay's going to absorb the moisture and it's going to just become funky. Go ahead. This is a whale I did for my swimming pool in Maui. So this was a really big project, and I did a scale drawing, so I knew exactly the scale of where it's going to be, because it was really important that it fit the shape of the bottom of the pool. And so this is 1 inch equals 1 foot. So if you're doing tile, and I'm teaching tile classes now, it's really important to use math. Math is a big part of my job, to make sure that the shrinkage is about right. And that's another thing. Every clay has different shrinkage. If it shrinks differently, if you're going to cone 5, if you're going to cone 10. So testing is super important to know what your shrinkage is going to be, and then how much you need to allow for the grout lines and how big you want those grout lines to be. I don't worry about grout lines being consistent. I think I heard the conversation earlier about organic. I think the flow, I don't worry about all those little details. I think it's all going to be fine. So I don't worry that every grout line has to be even. I worry that the look has to be the look I want it to be. So whether the grout lines are perfect or not, I try to keep them as small as possible, because I want the tile to be the focus, not the grout. So let's go to the next one. So this is drawing out, this is a 25-foot whale and baby whale that was about 8 feet that I made for the wall of my swimming pool in Maui. So this is my dessert, right? This is my retirement. I get to make anything I want. So I'm making this 25-foot humpback whale, because humpback whales come to Maui all the time. So I was better at kneeling then. I've had 2 knee replacements since then. I can't do that anymore. But this was about 5 years ago. And so it's hard to do a 25-foot drawing, because you don't have a wall that's that big, but you figure it out. So I had lots of tables. Go ahead. Then here's the pattern. And again, this one I did in reverse, because I knew I wanted the direction to go the other way. So I drew it the way I wanted to draw it. And then all the patterns had to be done upside down. I just take a needle and I just trace the pattern so I can see it. You can see a little bit on the right one. There's an indentation. I trace the pattern on the lines, and then I cut it. And then I number it when I turn them over, because I want it to be going the other direction. So you've got to carve the number in the back when it's going the other way. Here at glazing a 25-foot project, again on my knees. And first, like all the lines I did for the baleen areas, I glazed them and waxed them, and then the barnacles on the nose. Anyway, you don't need to know all the details of a whale, but go ahead. So here it is, glazed out of the kiln. Every single tile is numbered, so we know exactly where they go. And because there's installers. I don't trust any installers. What I didn't say in the video is the reason that we tape everything is we don't trust them, and we don't want them to think they're the artist We're the artists. We want to make it. We have a vision, and we don't want their vision. We want it to be our vision. So you can go next. So here it is, putting it in the pool, and see how critical it is that the tail fit perfectly with the curve of the pool. And there was 1 inch literally from the top water line and the bottom of the pool where it was going to fit perfectly. So after it shrank, so I made a paper pattern to draw it, then it shrank, then I made another paper pattern of it afterwards so I could know the exact size to fit it in the pool. Then I traced that pattern on the wall of the pool where I wanted it to go. Well, you can't see the water line very well here, but it's about 5,000 pieces of fused glass that I made for the water line. Okay. So here it is on the wall, and then here it is underwater, and that's not a great underwater picture. I couldn't find my better pictures, but go ahead. Now, this is a project I just made like a couple months ago for my own front door at my house here in Santa Barbara. And it's a 9-foot diameter circle that I wanted at the front door. And these are my fallen leaves. I had a lot of leaves left over from my business. And then I had to make a lot of leaves, so it's a circle of big leaves and then smaller leaves in the opposite circle that's going around. So this is how we lay it out. We lay out, thousands of pieces. Go ahead. This is one of my ex-employees who was so sweet to offer to come back and help me whenever I wanted help. He worked for me for 15 years and he can get on his knees, and I couldn't reach the inside of the 9-foot diameter. So he's doing that. Then we taped it. Then we made perpendicular lines with tape. And then here we've numbered everything again. And then I make a very rough layout map. This is horrible. I would never send this to an installer, but it was only for me, where I knew where everything started and how it all fit together. And then here it is ungrouted on the left and then grouted on the right. And then there's the whale in the inside, the day that they were plastering it. So I don't know if we have any more slides after that. I can't remember.
No, that's the last one.
Okay.
But I think point out here, here's your email address.
Correct. Ellie Tile.
Okay.
So do you have questions?
How thick are your tiles?
When I was making them commercially, I was cutting them at about a 1/2 inch and they'd shrink down to about 3/8.
What clay body were you working with?
I was working with porcelain 5. It's body number 395 from Laguna. Sometimes we started out using 52. I don't remember the name of it. Buff, I think buff with sand. But when I was doing a lot of projects in the East Coast, I had all my tiles tested from a testing lab because I had to make sure the coefficient of expansion didn't absorb water and wouldn't have a freeze thaw cycle that would be detrimental. So anything that absorbs less than 3% is considered okay for freeze thaw. If you want to do a test of your own material, of your own tile, your own clay, you make something, boil it for 2 hours, then weigh it before, boil it to absorb as much water as it possibly can, put it in the freezer for a day or two, take it out of the freezer, weigh it again, and see the differential in the weight. And that will tell you if it's less than 3%, it's generally not considered a freeze thaw problem. But when tile gets wet, or like red clay planters or anything like that, they absorb moisture. And if they freeze, it creates ice crystals, and that will expand and that will make it shiver and fall apart. So you don't want that to happen if you're doing a swimming pool in New Jersey.
Is that clay very grouty or is it a smoother clay?
Smooth, pretty smooth. Yeah. I mean, we use porcelain, cone 5 porcelain.
Oh, that's true. Right.
Yeah. Wonderful clay. Great to throw, great to make tile with. Yeah. And we don't handle the clay a lot. I find the reason we did not have a problem with warping was we handled it as minimally as possible. So you saw, we roll out a slab, we pick up the slab on a cloth, we lay it on the board. And that's a trick. You kind of lean back and lean it against your chest and then lay it down flat. If you have a wrinkle, your tile, as you know, clay has a memory. It's going to come back and bite you. So if you let it bend, you can't use that area for a flat tile. It has to be flat. It has to maintain flatness the whole time. And we just dried things, our racks were 4 inches apart. I had all my racks made, all my tables made, all welded exactly to my specifications so that everything dried slowly. And when it dries slowly and you haven't bent it when working it, like even when you turn it over to clean it, do it as minimally as possible. You just want to touch the edges. You really don't want to, you bend something, it's going to bend back when you fire it. Even if if you bisque, which we didn't bisque, but if you bisque, it might not bend in the bisque, but it will come back in the glaze firing.
It looks like when you dried your tiles, that they weren't covered or weighted down or anything.
Never. Total myth, not necessary. I have students I teach now and they go, oh, I looked at something online and I have to put boards on it. And I'm like, I'm your teacher. Are you listening? You don't need to do that. If you don't bend it when you make it, you don't need to do that when you're drying it. It just doesn't matter. I mean, you're not going to put a 12-inch tile in the sun. The outside edges are going to dry first. So you're not going to do that. But our mosaics, we would make them one day and we would glaze the next day. And we'd fire them the next
So
day.
the edges don't go up? The edges
Not on small things. On like a 12-inch tile, you do not put that in the sun. That has to dry slowly. They will go up. So you have to dry evenly and slowly.
So even your mosaics with the smaller tiles, those start out as a 1/2-inch slab as well?
Yeah. Well, everything had to be consistent because the mosaics had to fit within the fish and the designs and everything else. So everything we made was integrated. So they all ended up being about 3/8 of an inch when they were finished. But we made a lot of floor tile and a lot of tile that had a lot of wear. We did hospitals and restaurants. I mean, people's bathrooms and kitchens and stuff too. But I had to make sure. And in all my years, I never had a lawsuit ever. So that was my goal, was to not have a problem, because slip and fall is a big problem. Even in your own home, you just don't want a problem. You want it to be perfect.
Your work is beautiful. Do you use other designers to come into the mix, or do you design everything yourself?
I design everything.
Oh.
Did someone take over your business after you retired?
Well, I gave it to that employee that you saw that was kneeling for me.
No.
I just didn't want to continue working. And when my dad sold his business, he was retained for 5 years and had to keep in touch. And I just wanted to be done. I wanted to just move on. So I gave him 2 kilns, all my glaze recipes, all my designs, all my customers. He was a very excellent worker, but not a good designer. So we had relationships with a couple really good pool contractors in Santa Barbara, and he's still doing it. And he's great. I just gave him also my house furniture. But, I just didn't want to, I just wanted to be done. I didn't want to have I just wanted to move on. It was time. It was time for dessert.
When you said you used plastic coated freezer paper, where did you say you got that?
Smart and Final.
Smart and Final. And how did you use that paper? What was it for?
Well, you use the plastic side down towards the clay. So if you're cutting out like a fish or a flower or anything, put the plastic side down towards the clay so it won't absorb the moisture from the clay as the design's laying on top of it. Otherwise, regular paper is very porous and it's going to absorb a lot of moisture and it's going to disintegrate. So if you want to keep your pattern from falling apart, it really matters the kind of paper you use. Butcher paper, anything that's got a plastic coating on it. What's that stuff they cover shelves with?
Shelf paper.
Shelf paper. A lot of that's plastic. But there's a name. What's the name?
Contact paper.
Contact paper.
Contact paper.
Wallpaper.
People some people cut out patterns of that. That was way too expensive for the volume we were doing. But and we were quick, so we weren't leaving the paper on the clay for very long, but I had a laminator. So anything I was going to make more than once, I'd laminate the pattern, cut it out, laminate, plastic laminate on both sides, and then you've got it forever.
And you're saying then when you lay the plastic coated freezer paper on, you'd put your pattern on top of that.
No,
And
no,
then
no.
you'd cut-
You draw the pattern on the freezer paper. Draw
Oh,
it on the dry side and you put the
Oh.
wet side down, the plastic coated side down.
okay.
Yeah, it just doesn't dissolve. That's paper dissolves.
Now you used a needle to indent the pattern from the
Yes.
design from the pattern, but then when you cut the clay, what tool did you use to actually cut the clay?
Same needle.
The same needle? Okay.
Yeah. I used to buy hundreds at a time. But you can, you know, and I don't use the thick metal needle that you use like for cutting off when I'm throwing. I have a, you know, the metal handle needle that's,
Right.
but I use the crappy Kemper cheap needles, but they're really thin. And I like the really thin needles to cut with. They don't last a long time. You have to be careful. They break sometimes. So I'd have to hold my finger on the needle because it would bend a little bit. It would start to bend and then they break. And I have actually had a needle go through my hand because it broke off and it was in the clay and I was, you know, pounding the clay back together again and it just went right through my hand. So you want to watch your needles, you know, just, and sometimes those really thin needles come out of the wood holder. So glue them back in with a non-water-based glue, like silicone or something like that. I've made every mistake there is. So I'm,
So do you ever smooth out the edges?
yeah, with a sponge.
Uh-huh.
Or you can take
Or
a knife. You can take a knife and not, if you're using the side where the needle has displaced that clay when you're cutting it, I use a knife to knock down the high edge and then go over it with a sponge so it's a nice rounded edge. First of all, if it's a rounded edge, it's not going to chip. And also, if you're condensing the clay particles in the edge, and so if you use a sponge to just condense it a little bit, just like when you're throwing the lip of a cup, you're condensing those clay particles, it's going to be stronger. We did the restaurant on Stearns Wharf in Santa Barbara called the Harbor Restaurant. So if you're ever in Santa Barbara, go there because they're going to remodel it in the next 6 months or something. And they might be taking out all my tile, but it was a gigantic, huge project. And the owner was really challenging when I met him. I wanted to do this project. I proposed it to him and he didn't know anything about me. And he said, well, the manager was like, well, what do you mean? How do we know your tile's not going to chip and it's not going to be terrible? And I was so nervous about it. There are probably at least 50,000 tiles in this project. We hand cleaned the edge of every single tile so that it would not chip. And there was one tile chipped in the entire floor. It's been in for 20 years and it's got more traffic than probably any restaurant in Santa Barbara. And it's all floors, it's stair risers, it's bathrooms, it's everything. So if you get a chance to see it, it's a pretty fun, it was a really fun project to do. It was installed at 11:30 at night till 8:30 in the morning because he wouldn't close for us to do it. So, but there's no chips. So if you clean the edges and use your sponge, it works.
What's the name of the restaurant?
The Harbor.
Oh.
The Harbor Restaurant, and the stair risers all go up to a bar called Longboards. And so there's surfboards, longboards all up the stair risers. It's fun.
Yeah, it's really neat. I've enjoyed those tiles over the years when I would have meals
good.
there. So beautiful. They were a lot of fun to look at.
Good. Any other questions?
All I
Just a
can say
comment
is,
Go ahead, Wanda.
I just say, all I can say is you're amazing. Go ahead, Win.
Thank you.
Another thing about cleaning tiles, you're using porcelain. So cleaning the edges of porcelain is very different than cleaning the edges of stoneware. You don't have the grog or the sand, you know, that if you're cleaning it, it's a little bit dry, that pops out. When you go over it with a sponge, you don't have to deal with the roughness.
Well, we did use WC52 for a long time with grog because I thought that's what I needed to do. And, you know, we cleaned those too. I mean, you put enough glaze on it, it covers it all up.
All right, last call for questions.
I'm still curious about from the time you use the slab roller until you're cutting out the pieces, how you handle the clay so that it doesn't have any kind of bend for a memory nightmare later on.
Well, we roll out a slab and we you saw the guy pick up the slab with the cloth. That's how you need to move your slab. The slab's going to roll out on a cloth. Pick it up, have your board ready, lean it against your chest, lean back a little bit and lay it down carefully. And if you have no bubbles or wrinkles or anything, cut it out immediately. We never waited. We just cut it out. Cut out the fish, pull away the negative space of the clay and let them dry. Then the next day, clean them.
So the problem people are having is they're picking up a slab of clay. Like some of the slab rollers, there's the fabric, and then you take your clay off of the fabric and you're carrying the clay without any fabric backing, and that's when it bends, and that's what causes the.
They should never touch the slab. Don't touch the slab.
Experience does it.
You roll it out on a cloth. Okay, you got the cloth that's going over the roller, right? That's very kind of coarse. Then if you want a smoother one, you can do something. But if you put a cloth down and whatever texture you want is fine. A canvas, some kind of canvas. A sheet's not going to work. It's too thin. It's going to absorb moisture too much. So use some kind of a medium weight canvas and have it fit the slab roller and have it fit a size you could pick up. So if you have I had two 36-inch slab rollers. If you have a slab roller that's 24 inches wide, you have a cloth that's maybe 36 inches long. You roll out a slab, it's stuck to the bottom, right? It's stuck on the bottom. You pick it up with your hands like this. You pick it up just like this. You lean back. You have your board right next to you. You prepare the board. It's just a board. We used masonite because we liked that it was really smooth when we cut it. And then you lay up the bottom edge and you put it down and you don't touch it. You don't mess with it. You never touch the clay. You touch your needle and you cut it in your pattern, but you don't move the tile. You don't move the slab around. Don't touch it.
The canvas keeps it from bending and everything.
Canvas will keep it if you hold it properly. Pull it out. Don't let it bend and get folds in front of you. Keep it rigid and out. You want to keep it as flat as possible. That's really a trick, and it takes practice. But
Thank you.
You have to do it that way.
Thank you.
I have a question. What
Yes.
what was the surface that you were drying the tiles on outside? Was it cement board or regular wood board?
I don't know what I was drawing on. I don't know what image.
The tables outside, they looked like just regular tables. What was the surface of the table?
Oh, they're
Was
all
it just
made.
boards?
They're all my tables were that white melamine.
So the slab was just on the wooden board that you. laid them on?
We actually, if we wanted our slabs to look really smooth, we would use, I had all the racks made and they were just plywood. And then I would have a 1/4 inch piece of masonite that was super smooth if I wanted a really smooth surface. We didn't use those all the time, but the masonite really made it, it's so slick. It's really smooth. So we would use those.
Thank you.
But they have no structural strength. So you have to have them on top of plywood.
So you would let the weight of the clay smooth it out? You don't rib it or anything like that? And just laying it down will help smooth it out from the canvas?
Yep. We didn't no. I ran a factory. And I started out doing, individual wall sculptures and selling in galleries and so I kind of worked up to the whole tile thing. And then a woman named Ann Sachs saw my work, and she owned a company called Ann Sachs Tile and Stone, which was owned by Kohler. And she started advertising my tile work in Architectural Digest full page ads before I even really knew. I didn't know how to install tile. I didn't know anything. So all of a sudden there's these ads in Architectural Digest. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in business. What do I do? And so I had to really figure it out fast. And I never worked for a tile person. I figured it all out on my own from trial and error, making a ton of mistakes, totally screwing up. So
Yeah, I was just wondering about getting rid of the canvas texture. Just the
well,
weight of the clay will take care of that on the masonite?
yeah, masonite will take care of it. Also use very smooth canvas. You know, the
Oh.
roller, the canvas that comes on a lot of the Brant rollers, it has a lot of texture,
Right.
but you can put, there's a thing called slab mat. That's amazing. This woman makes this thing called slab mat in Gainesville, Florida, and it's to roll out perfectly smooth slabs. And we
Okay.
didn't use it all the time, but you can certainly do that.
Yeah.
The smoother the canvas, the smoother it's going to be. But if it's too smooth, you can't use, it has to be smooth and thick because it's got to absorb some moisture. A sheet is not going to do that. It's going to be too flimsy.
Mhm.
I use that freezer paper all the time and for my slabs, but I actually put the clay in between the two plastic sides, put that through the slab roller, and then I can swing it around like your assistant did and, you know, transport it. And it also gives me a nice smooth surface without the canvas texture. So that freezer paper is awesome stuff. And I always peel off the freezer paper, flip it, so that the paper side is on the slab when I'm ready for the slab to dry out. Because
That freezer paper doesn't wrinkle when you go through the slab roller?
That shit is great. I mean, that stuff works really well. And I get it from Smart and Final. It's the exact same thing.
It's just too small for me.
It would be too small for you. I get that.
Way too small. I know. It's very.
But for me and my little thing, works great.
For most people, it's fine. Yeah. I don't know about swinging around the slab.
I do. I pull it off and it's sturdy, so you don't have to bend it or anything. And I just swing it onto my board and.
Good. That's great.
Works good.
That's a good idea.
I'm going to Smart and Final tomorrow. Get some of that stuff.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Last call.
Do we get a tour of your studio where you are now?
Well, I don't have that studio. I'm working at the clay studio and I'm teaching tile and throwing there. And we would love to have you guys come and have a tour. Absolutely. I feel so fortunate. It's such a gift to be able to work at this studio. I've had my own studio my entire life. And when I moved back to Santa Barbara, I bought a house that really didn't have room for a studio. So I had to figure out, what am I going to do? But it's okay right now.
Oh, you're not in Maui anymore?
No, I'm in Santa Barbara.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I moved back. I had some health issues and some reasons I wanted to move back, including my kids, and they did not want me to be there anymore after I had some health problems. And so I moved here and I love being here. It's really much better for me. It's great. And I mean, that was like my fantasy. I did it and I sold it and I made money from it so I could move to Santa Barbara. So it's all good. So I'm teaching at the clay studio. And if you guys would like a tour or to come visit and have an event or we would love that. We were kind of hoping that this class would be at the clay studio. And then when it ended up being a Zoom thing, Patrick, who is in charge there, we were kind of like, well, this is great, but we would love to have more of a relationship. So if you wanted to come to the clay studio, I would love to host you. And it's a lovely place. It's 26,000 square feet.
An amazing place.
Is this the place that you and Ellen visited?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is it in Goleta?
Yes.
In Goleta.
Yeah. It's
there's a show there right now in their gallery.
Oh, the show is
like
unbelievable.
a must-see show.
No, this show is to die for. I know. I wish it was my collection.
Yeah, it's a small sampling from a private collection, and it's like a look at
clay in the last 50
what happened
years.
it's really a look at what happened to clay in the United States after Hamada and Leach came and toured around the country and sowed seeds every place.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's incredible. So I feel like I just kind of fell into this vat of butter. I mean, it's so exciting. It's just great. So I'm teaching and I'm using the studio. I'm hoping to, they don't have any more studio spaces to rent, but I'm top on the list to get one. And, you know, it's okay right now. I'm still working on my house and making a lot of mosaics for here and building some furniture and, you know, it's okay.
So how long is the current show going to be at the Clay Studio?
Well, I don't, well,
Patrick said he thought the end of August.
well, Patrick
was
also said, as long as we want, because it's such an awesome show, we don't want to
Yeah.
take it down. So hopefully through, maybe I could ask him to have it through September. I mean, I think that'd be awesome.
So he
So a
didn't have
field trip would
anything
be
in
great.
mind to go in there next, I don't think. We were just up, I just saw him over the weekend.
Oh, good.
And what hours is it open?
I
Good
don't
question.
know. Probably
their
9
website.
to 6 or something. I mean, people are
Yeah.
there till 8 o'clock every night. So, and somebody has a key to open the gallery. So, I mean, I would say probably let's think 9 to 5, but I don't really know.
Yeah, it's on the website. The hours have got to be on the website.
Yeah.
Clay Studio SV.
Yeah. Isn't it wonderful?
It's incredible place.
Yeah. I feel just so excited to be there. So it's new for me. It's new. It's a new thing, but it's great.
So the glazes that you used on your pieces, were they your recipes? Were they dry and you mixed things up, or
They
tell us more
were
about
all of
those?
the above. Some I bought from Laguna. I used to make all my glazes and all from scratch. And then when I really started doing a lot of production, I started using their bases and adding a lot of glaze stains and minerals and things. So I developed all the glazes, but I used their bases. After a while, I worked with the chemists there too, because there were certain textures or things I wanted and that they would make bases for me. But mostly in the tile business, I used a base from several different bases, and then sometimes mixed the bases and then added my own, added glaze stains and minerals. But I had about 100 different colors. And I love making glazes, so I was always testing. I had 14 colors come out of the kiln this morning, so it was exciting.
So Rebecca Russell, do you have your hand up? You're muted. You're muted, Rebecca.
Okay, I just wanted to know if that was Patrick Call's place that
Yes.
you're talking about. Yeah, I know that place. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
All right, last call. Questions? All right, Michelle, obviously by the questions, people were really excited about what you were talking about tonight. And thank you so much for taking the time and the effort to put together your PowerPoint and deal with all of the computer lag questions.
And thank you to Peter Love for helping me. He was my techie.
Totally.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And
Yeah,
if
thank
anyone
you.
wants to come, let me know and I'll give you a tour.
All right, excellent.